There are words meant to be spoken in daylight, and there are words meant to be whispered in the stillness of night. What you are about to hear belongs to the second kind. These are not teachings for the hurried mind or the distracted heart. They are transmissions meant for the quiet hours, when the world falls away and something deeper in you begins to listen. Something that has been waiting. Something that recognizes truth not through analysis, but through resonance. Not through thinking, but through feeling. Not through effort, but through surrender. These words have traveled far to reach you, across centuries and continents, through the hands of guardians who kept them safe until this moment. You did not arrive here by accident. There is no accident in a universe woven with intention, threaded with purpose, humming with meaning that the surface mind cannot perceive, but the soul knows intimately. The path called you. Perhaps you felt it as restlessness that nothing could satisfy, as longing that pointed beyond any particular object, as the sense that something essential had been forgotten, though you could not name what it was. Perhaps you have searched in books and found words that stirred you but did not answer. Perhaps you have sat in temples and felt the presence of something vast but could not make it stay. Perhaps you have listened to the words of teachers and found fragments of a truth that seemed to dissolve when you tried to hold it in ordinary consciousness. Tonight, the search pauses. Tonight, the teaching comes to you in the sacred container of darkness and rest. What follows has been guarded for millennia, not because it is dangerous in the way weapons are dangerous, but because it is powerful in the way seeds are powerful, in the way fire is powerful, in the way truth itself is powerful when it enters a mind ready to be transformed by it. Given to soil that is not ready, the seed rots and brings forth nothing. Given to soil that has been prepared through sincerity and longing and openness, it becomes a forest that provides shelter for generations. The ancients understood this principle of readiness. They did not withhold knowledge out of selfishness, but out of wisdom, knowing that premature revelation helps no one and can harm both the unprepared receiver and the teaching itself. And so they hid these truths. They wrapped them in myth that seemed like entertainment to the casual listener, but revealed depths to the sincere seeker. They encoded them in symbols that passed through centuries without being recognized by those who would have destroyed them. They passed them from teacher to student in whispered lineages that stretched across generations, each link in the chain testing the next, each guardian passing the torch only when they found hands steady enough to carry it. They embedded the teachings in architecture and art, in the proportions of temples and the gestures of sacred dance, in the geometry of mandalas and the mathematics of music. They tested those who sought these teachings, not to be cruel, but to ensure readiness, to protect both the seeker and the sought from the consequences of premature union. But you are ready now. The very fact that you are here, listening in the darkness, proves that something within you has matured to receive what was once forbidden. The student does not find the teaching finds the student when the student is ready. And so these words have found you, in this moment, in this night, in this precise configuration of your unfolding that made you available to receive them. Trust this. Trust that you are exactly where you need to be, hearing exactly what you need to hear, at exactly the moment you need to hear it. Do not try to understand with your thinking mind. That is not how this transmission works. The thinking mind is a wonderful tool for certain purposes, but it cannot receive what is being offered tonight. The words you hear will bypass the gates of analysis and plant themselves directly in the soil of your deeper awareness, beneath the level where thinking happens, in the fertile darkness where transformation takes root. You will not remember every phrase when morning comes. You do not need to. What matters will take root. What matters will grow. In sleep, in dreams, in the quiet moments of days to come, you will find these truths rising in you as if they had always been there, because they have. You are not learning tonight. You are remembering what was temporarily forgotten, recovering what was always yours, awakening what was only sleeping. So let your body soften now. Let your breath slow to the rhythm of rest. Let the weight of the day fall from your shoulders like a cloak you no longer need, like armor that served its purpose and can now be set aside. The veil between worlds grows thin in these hours when most of humanity sleeps. The universe leans close, waiting to whisper what it could not say in the noise of daylight activity, waiting to offer what could not be received by a mind cluttered with doing and planning and worrying. And the forbidden teachings begin. There is a language older than words. It was spoken before the first human drew breath, before the stars arranged themselves in their ancient patterns, before time itself began its patient counting of moments. This language does not move through sound or symbol. It moves through vibration, through resonance, through the silent pulse that connects all things across the vastness of space and the depths of being. The mystics called it the tongue of creation, the original speech, the word that was in the beginning before any particular word existed. They said that those who learned to hear it could understand the speech of rivers flowing to the sea and the council of stones that have witnessed ages come and go. They said reality itself was written in this language, and that everything you see, everything you touch, everything you experience is a sentence the universe is speaking to itself, and through you, to itself again. This language predates every human tongue by eons beyond counting. It was present when the first galaxies spiraled into form out of the primordial fire, when the first stars ignited and began their long burning. It was there when the first atoms found each other and began the dance of matter that would eventually become worlds and oceans and forests and creatures, and finally, the human form you now inhabit. It was the music playing when life first stirred in ancient seas, when the first cell divided and began the long experiment of biology, when consciousness first flickered in the minds of creatures now long extinct and forgotten except in the memory of the cosmos itself. It speaks now in the rhythm of your heartbeat, that steady drum that has accompanied you since before birth and will accompany you until you leave this body. It speaks in the cadence of waves upon shores you have never visited, but somehow remember. It speaks in the pulse of light, arriving from stars that may no longer exist, light that left its source before your species walked the earth, light that has traveled the void for millennia just to touch your eye in this moment. Everything vibrates with this language. Everything participates in this endless conversation that has no beginning and will have no end. You have always known this language. As a child, before the world taught you what to pay attention to and what to ignore, before you learned to filter your experience through concepts and categories, you heard it in the wind moving through leaves. You felt it in the electricity before a storm, in that charged silence that makes animals restless and children quiet with something like anticipation. You sensed it in the gaze of animals who looked at you with knowing that transcended species, communication happening between souls rather than minds. You sensed it in the stillness of forests where something seemed to watch and wait, where presence gathered in the spaces between trees. There were moments when the world seemed to speak directly to you, when meaning flowed without words, when you understood something vast and important and could not explain how you knew what you knew. But you were taught to ignore these experiences. Well-meaning adults who had themselves forgotten told you it was just imagination, just fantasy, just a child's way of making the world more interesting than it actually is. You were told that only words spoken by mouths carried meaning, that only messages delivered through recognized channels were real. You were educated out of your birthright. The language was always speaking, never ceasing, never reducing its broadcast, but you were trained to cover your ears and call the covering wisdom. And so you forgot. But forgetting is not the same as losing. What was forgotten can be remembered. Tonight, we begin the remembering. Close your eyes now and listen beneath the words I speak. Feel the rhythm that carries them beyond their surface meaning. Notice how some phrases land in your chest, while others brush against your mind like leaves in autumn wind. Notice how some sentences seem to unlock something, to touch a place that has been waiting to be touched. This is the language speaking through the language, the transmission beneath the teaching, the signal within the signal. You do not need to decode it with your thinking mind. The thinking mind was never designed for this kind of reception. Simply receive. Simply allow. Simply be present without trying to do anything with what comes. Your deeper self already understands what your surface mind cannot grasp. The soul has never forgotten the tongue of creation. Only the personality forgot. And the personality is beginning to remember. The universe does not speak in commands. It speaks in mirrors. Everything you encounter in your outer world is a reflection of something moving in your inner world. made visible so you can see what you could not otherwise perceive. The ancients called this the law of correspondence, and they considered it among the most important keys to understanding how reality works. As within, so without. As above, so below. What you believe with the deepest parts of yourself, beneath the level of conscious thought, you see confirmed everywhere you look because you are literally looking through the lens of that belief. What you feel with sustained intensity, you attract into your experience as if you were a magnet, and circumstances were iron filings arranging themselves around your emotional field. What you fear with persistent focus, you meet again and again in different forms, until the fear dissolves into understanding and loses its power to create. This is not punishment for wrong thinking or bad feelings. This is not the universe being cruel or playing games with your life. This is invitation. This is education. This is the curriculum of incarnation operating exactly as it was designed to operate. Reality is showing you yourself in the only way you can be shown, through external experience that mirrors internal reality. You cannot see the back of your own head directly. You need a mirror. You cannot see your unconscious beliefs and hidden emotional patterns directly. You need a mirror. Life is that mirror, constantly reflecting back to you what you carry within, constantly offering you the opportunity to see yourself more clearly. The difficult people who trigger you are mirrors reflecting parts of yourself that you have not yet embraced or even recognized. That quality in them that disturbs you so much is a quality in you that you have not yet made peace with. This is not always obvious. Sometimes the mirroring is direct, where you dislike in them what you dislike in yourself. Sometimes the mirroring is compensatory, where they express what you have suppressed, and their expression disturbs your suppression. Either way, they are serving your awakening by showing you what you need to see. The recurring patterns that seem to follow you from relationship to relationship, from job to job, from city to city, are mirrors showing you beliefs that operate beneath your conscious awareness. You think you are choosing new situations, but the situations are manifestations of old beliefs, and until the beliefs change, the situations will continue to rhyme with each other, even when the surface details differ. The same themes return in different costumes. The same lessons present themselves in different classrooms. This will continue until you see what is being shown and change at the level of cause rather than only at the level of effect. The moments of unexpected beauty that stop your breath are mirrors too, reflecting the beauty within you that you have not yet claimed as your own. When something in the outer world strikes you as magnificent, it is because it is resonating with magnificence that lives in you. Magnificence that you have perhaps not yet dared to own. Beauty that you have perhaps projected outward because it seemed too grand to be part of your ordinary self. But nothing strikes you as beautiful unless beauty lives in you to recognize it. The recognition is a kind of reunion. When you truly understand this principle of mirroring, everything changes. You stop fighting the reflection and begin working with the source. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" as if you were a victim of random circumstance, as if life were simply a series of events that had nothing to do with you, and begin asking, "What is this showing me?" as a student of the curriculum your own soul designed for your own awakening. You stop being passive sufferer and become active learner. Every encounter becomes a teaching. Every difficulty becomes a doorway into deeper self-knowledge. Every relationship becomes a classroom where you learn about the hidden dimensions of your own being. Every circumstance becomes a message from yourself to yourself about what needs attention, what needs healing, what needs to be brought into the light of awareness. Breathe slowly now and consider your life as a hall of mirrors extending in all directions, each surface reflecting something back to you about who you are and what you believe and what you carry unexamined in the depths of your psyche. Not to mock you, not to trap you, not to punish you for failures you cannot remember, but to help you see what you could not see otherwise, to show you what hides in your blind spots, to reveal the unconscious patterns that shape your days without your knowing. Whisper to yourself, "I am ready to see what the mirrors show. I am ready to learn what my life is teaching. I welcome the reflection as a gift from my own soul to my own awakening." In hidden schools far from the notice of ordinary humanity, concealed in mountain monasteries and underground temples and unremarkable buildings in ordinary cities, initiates were taught the secret of thought. Not the ordinary understanding that thoughts influence mood, that positive thinking makes you feel better, and negative thinking makes you feel worse, but the deeper recognition that thought is the very substance of creation itself. Before anything exists in physical form, it exists as thought. Before the visible, the invisible. Before the manifest, the imagined. Before the solid, the subtle. Thought is not merely a reflection of reality. Thought is the womb in which reality gestates before being born into form. Consider this truth demonstrated everywhere in the world around you. The chair you sit upon was once an idea in someone's mind, nothing more than a pattern of imagination. Before it was wood and fabric and structure, before it had weight and solidity, before it could support your body, it was imagination. Someone thought of sitting, thought of support, thought of the shape that would provide comfort, thought of the materials that would provide durability. The thought came first, the form followed. The city beyond your window, with all its buildings and streets and parks and infrastructure, was once a vision that someone held with such clarity and persistence that it began to materialize brick by brick, building by building, decision by decision. Everything made by human hands was first made in human minds. But this principle extends far beyond human creation. The entire universe, according to the mystics, is thought thinking itself into form. The physical is precipitation of the mental. Matter is crystallized mind. What you call solid reality is consciousness that has forgotten it is consciousness. Spirit so focused on a particular pattern that it seems to become that pattern. This is why the most advanced physics and the most ancient mysticism are beginning to converge, both recognizing that at the foundation of apparent matter is something more like information, more like pattern, more like mind. You are thinking constantly, whether you notice it or not. Rivers of thought flow through you from waking to sleep, and even through the landscapes of dream. Thousands upon thousands of thoughts each day, most of them unnoticed, passing like clouds across the sky of awareness without drawing attention, without leaving obvious trace. And each thought is a seed cast into the fertile darkness of the creative field. Most seeds fall on stone and do not take root. They pass through without effect, leaving nothing behind. These are the casual thoughts, the passing observations, the fleeting mental movements that come and go without emotional charge or sustained attention. But some thoughts find fertile ground. The thoughts you repeat day after day, wearing grooves in your mind through repetition, become powerful through sheer persistence. The thoughts you feel deeply with emotional intensity become powerful through the energy you feed them. The thoughts you believe without question, that seem so obviously true you never think to question them, become powerful through the authority you grant them. These are the seeds that germinate in the dark soil of your subconscious mind and grow into the garden of your experience. Your life is the garden. Look at what grows there, and you will know what thoughts have been planted and nurtured. The forbidden teaching is this: you are not the victim of your thoughts, helplessly carried along by currents of mental activity beyond your control. You are their source. You are the thinker, not merely the thought. The capacity to think belongs to you. The choice of what to think, while conditioned by habit and circumstance, is ultimately yours. You can choose which seeds to plant in the garden of your mind. You can learn to recognize the weeds before they spread their roots through everything. You can tend the garden with the same care a master gardener tends rare orchids, selecting what grows and what is removed, what is watered with attention, and what is allowed to wither through neglect. This does not happen overnight. The garden has been growing wild for years, perhaps for decades. Weeds have established themselves so thoroughly they seem like native plants, indistinguishable from what belongs. Beliefs you absorbed in childhood, before you had any capacity to evaluate them, have spread roots through every corner of your mental landscape. Thought patterns you inherited from family and culture, thoughts that were simply in the air you breathed growing up, have become so familiar you cannot imagine thinking differently. The garden is overgrown. The work of cultivation seems overwhelming when you first see clearly how much needs to be done. But every journey begins with a single step. Every transformation begins with a single moment of awareness. And tonight, In the quiet darkness where seeds germinate best, awareness dawns. You cannot instantly transform the garden, but you can begin to see it clearly, and clear seeing is the beginning of all change. Pause and notice what you have been thinking today. Not to judge what you find, not to criticize yourself for the weeds that have grown, but simply to see, simply to observe. Bring the quality of a curious scientist rather than a harsh judge. Awareness is the first tool of the gardener. Before you can cultivate, you must observe. Before you can choose, you must notice that choice is possible. Before you can plant new seeds, you must see what has already been planted and what harvest those plantings have been producing. What have you been thinking? What have you been growing? There is a doorway that leads beyond thought itself. The mystics called it many names across many traditions and many centuries, each name pointing toward the same nameless reality. The silence, the void, the stillness, the space between breaths, the gap between thoughts, the witness behind the witnessed, the ground of being, the source. Each tradition found its own words, but the reality they pointed toward is one. It is not emptiness as absence, not the emptiness of a room with nothing in it, not a blank vacancy, not a mere negation of what fills ordinary awareness. It is emptiness as potential, emptiness as the pregnant darkness from which all light is born, emptiness as the infinite canvas upon which all finite forms are painted. All creation emerges from this stillness and returns to it. Every thought arises from silence and dissolves back into silence, and the silence remains unchanged by what arises and dissolves within it. Every form crystallizes from formlessness and eventually returns to formlessness, and the formlessness remains eternally available for new crystallizations. The ancients understood that touching this silence was touching the source itself, the wellspring from which all experience flows, the foundation upon which all particular things rest. They developed elaborate practices to access it, to rest in it, to draw from its infinite potential, to live with one foot in form and one foot in the formless from which all forms come. You have touched this place before, though you may not have recognized it for what it was. In moments of awe, when the mind stopped its chatter and you stood present to something vast, something that had no name, but needed no name, something before which words felt not just inadequate, but inappropriate. In the gap between sleeping and waking, when you were neither here nor there, but somewhere beyond both, floating in a space that had no coordinates, resting in a peace that had no opposite. In the sudden peace that follows complete surrender, when you stopped fighting what you had been fighting and simply let go, and found yourself held by something larger than your efforts had ever been able to achieve. In moments of deep love, when the boundaries between you and another seemed to dissolve, and there was only love loving itself through two apparent forms. In moments of creative flow, when you disappeared and something moved through you that was wiser than your ordinary mind. In moments of great beauty, when the world suddenly revealed itself as luminous, transparent, vibrating with a presence that pervaded everything. In all these moments, you touch the silence that underlies the noise, the stillness that underlies the motion, the eternal that underlies the temporal. This is not foreign territory, it is your original home. The busy mind, with all its noise and commentary and endless narration, is the visitor, the newcomer, the temporary guest that has overstayed its welcome and forgotten it is a guest. Stillness is the native land. Stillness was there before you learned to think. Stillness will remain when thinking stops. The mind, with all its activity, is like waves on the surface of an ocean, drawing all attention with their motion and drama. The stillness is the depth beneath, unmoved by surface turbulence, vast and eternal, waiting for you to remember and return. Close your eyes now and find the silence beneath my words. It is there, patient, waiting, never having left no matter how much noise has covered it over. You do not create stillness. It is not something you manufacture through effort. You simply stop covering it over. You simply turn your attention from the waves to the deep. You simply allow what has always been present to reveal itself. Like the sky behind clouds, it is always present, always vast, always welcoming you home. Say within yourself, I rest in the silence that holds all things. I remember the stillness that is my home. I am the depth, not only the waves. The universe moves in currents you cannot see with ordinary eyes, forces flowing like invisible rivers through the fabric of reality. These currents carry opportunities, encounters, insights, revelations. They bring the right person to the right place at the right moment, engineer coincidences that are not coincidences, orchestrate meetings that change the course of lives. They deliver the perfect challenge when you are ready to grow and not a moment before. They sweep away what no longer serves when you are clinging too tightly to what must be released. The ancients mapped these currents through patient observation across generations, watching, recording, transmitting their observations to those who came after, building a science of the invisible flows that shape manifest experience. They built temples at the intersections of these currents, where the energy concentrated and amplified, where the veil between worlds grew thin. They timed their actions to align with celestial rhythms, knowing that certain moments were more favorable for certain endeavors. They planted crops and conceived children and launched ventures and began journeys according to the flow of these invisible tides. They understood what modern culture has largely forgotten, that there are moments when the current supports forward movement and moments when it invites stillness and consolidation, moments to act and moments to wait, moments when effort yields abundant fruit, and moments when effort is wasted against an opposing flow. You feel these currents in your own life, though you may not have named them or recognized them for what they are. Some days carry an energy of opening, of expansion, of possibility flowering in all directions. Doors appear where before there were only walls. Conversations spark with unexpected connection. Ideas arrive fully formed as if delivered from somewhere beyond your own thinking. Everything seems to flow and synchronize, effort disappearing into effortlessness. On these days, you may accomplish more by noon than you accomplish in ordinary weeks. Other days feel thick, resistant, as if you are walking through water, as if every step requires twice the energy it should. The universe itself seems to push back against your efforts, not to defeat you, but to signal that this is not the time for what you are trying to do. On these days, forcing forward movement often creates problems, while rest and reflection prepare you for the next wave of flow. This is not random. This is not imagination. This is not merely the fluctuation of your personal energy, though that fluctuation is also real. This is the pulse of creation expressing itself through time, inviting you to dance with its rhythms rather than fight against them. The swimmer who fights the current exhausts herself and moves nowhere, struggling against forces far greater than her individual strength. The swimmer who reads the current and moves with it travels far with little effort, carried by the same forces that would have defeated her opposition. This requires a different kind of attention than modern life usually demands. It requires listening before acting, sensing before deciding. It requires a willingness to wait when everything in you wants to push forward, and a willingness to move when everything in you wants to stay safe and still. It requires trusting something larger than your own plans and preferences, trusting that the river knows where it is going, even when you cannot see around the bend. Breathe and sense the current of this moment. Is it inviting you forward into action or inward into reflection? Is it a time of doing or a time of being? Is the river moving or resting? You already know. The body always knows what the mind argues about. Trust what you feel beneath the thoughts. You have lived before. Not the you of name and history, not the you that carries a specific identity with a specific story in this specific lifetime, not the personality that you usually take yourself to be, but the you beneath the story. The you that wears identities like costumes and sets them aside when the play is done. The ancients called it the eternal self, the Atman, the soul, the spark of the divine that travels through form after form, life after life, gathering experience, growing in wisdom, slowly remembering its way back to its source. Each life is a chapter in a book too vast to comprehend from within any single chapter. Each death is a turning of the page, not an ending, but a transition. Nothing is truly lost in this great journey, only transformed, only carried forward in different form. The skills you cannot explain, appearing fully formed when you first attempt something, as if you had practiced for years, though in this life you never have, are echoes of mastery developed in other chapters of your story. The knowledge that seems to come from nowhere, certainties you hold without knowing their origin, are memories of learning that happened before this body drew its first breath. The places that feel strangely familiar, though you have never visited them in this life. The sense of recognition when you stand somewhere for the first time is your soul remembering landscapes it walked before. The faces you recognize, though you have never met them. The instant connections that bypass the usual gradual development of relationship are meetings of companions already bonded in chapters already written. You did not meet these people for the first time. You met them again. You do not need to remember your past lives in specific detail to benefit from this truth. The particular stories matter less than the fundamental recognition that you are not the temporary form. You are the awareness that inhabits the form. The body you wear now is like a suit of clothes. The personality you call yourself is like a character you are playing. Behind the clothes, behind the character, there is the one who wears and plays, and that one does not begin when the clothes are put on or end when they are taken off. You were never born in the way the mind believes birth happens, a consciousness being created from nothing and thrust into existence. You will never die in the way the mind fears death, a consciousness being extinguished and returning to nothing. You are a wave in an infinite ocean. The wave rises and falls, appears and disappears, but the ocean remains. The ocean has always remained. The ocean will always remain. And you are the ocean, appearing temporarily as this particular wave. Feel now the continuity of awareness that has accompanied you through every change of your current life. The body you had as a child is gone, its cells replaced many times over, not a single molecule remaining from that earlier form. The thoughts you had yesterday have dissolved into nothing, leaving at most faint traces. The emotions that seemed so overwhelming a year ago have faded to distant memory, their intensity almost unimaginable from your current vantage point. Everything has changed, and yet something has remained constant through all these changes. Something has witnessed every transformation without being transformed itself. Something looks out through your eyes now that looked out through your child eyes, and will look out through your elder eyes if this body lives to grow old. That is what you are. That is the you that continues. That is the you that will step out of this form when the time comes, and step into whatever comes next, as it has done before, as it will do again, until the great journey reaches its completion. Hidden in the architecture of existence is a principle the wise ones called polarity. Everything that exists has its opposite. Light and shadow, expansion and contraction, joy and sorrow, creation and destruction, activity and rest, rising and falling, inhale and exhale, birth and death. These are not enemies locked in battle, not forces trying to defeat each other in some cosmic war that one side might eventually win. They are partners in a dance that creates the very fabric of experience, each one defining the other, each one giving meaning to the other, each one impossible without the other as its context and complement. How would you know light if you had never experienced darkness? The very concept of light requires the concept of darkness for its meaning. How would you recognize joy if sorrow had never visited you? The depth of joy you can experience is precisely correlated with the depth of sorrow you have known. How would you appreciate health if illness had never shown you what its absence feels like? How would you understand rest if you had never known exhaustion? How would you value connection if you had never tasted loneliness? The opposites are teachers, each one revealing the nature of its partner through contrast, each one making the other possible, each one necessary for the full experience of being alive. The suffering you have known has carved spaces in you where wisdom now resides. Without those hollow places, wisdom would have nowhere to pool. The darkness you have walked through has given you eyes that see what others miss, perceiving depths that the perpetually comfortable cannot fathom. This is not justification for pain, not a suggestion that you should seek difficulty or remain in situations that harm you, not an argument that suffering is good and should be pursued. It is recognition of the alchemy that transforms all experience into growth when you allow it to. When you stop resisting and start receiving. When you ask what this is teaching rather than why this is happening. When you resist one pole of experience, when you grasp at pleasure and push away pain, when you cling to joy and flee from sorrow, when you accept only half of reality and reject the other half, you empower the very thing you resist. What you resist persists. What you fight, you strengthen. The energy of your resistance feeds what you are trying to starve. But when you accept the dance, when you allow both partners their movement across the floor of your experience, when you stop trying to freeze the dance at the moment you prefer, you find yourself at the still point between opposites. Here, there is peace that does not depend on circumstances. Here, there is the witnessing presence that observes both joy and sorrow without being swept away by either. Here, there is you, the awareness in which all opposites play their endless game. Whisper to yourself, I honor both sides of the dance. I welcome joy without grasping. I accept sorrow without drowning. I rest in the stillness at the center of all motion. Time is not what you have been told. The ancients knew this long before physicists began to confirm it with equations and experiments. They saw time not as a straight line marching from past to future in rigid sequence, not as a river flowing in one direction only, with no possibility of return, but as a spiral, circling back on itself, bringing the same lessons in new forms, returning you to familiar territory at higher elevations. This is why patterns repeat in your life. This is why the same themes return, wearing different costumes. This is why you sometimes feel you have been here before, faced this before, encountered this exact challenge before. Because you have. Not exactly the situation with exactly these details, but its essential pattern, its core teaching, its fundamental lesson. The spiral has brought you back to something that was offered before and not yet fully learned. This is not failure, not evidence that you are stuck, not punishment for past inadequacy. This is the patience of the universe. This is the relentless love of existence that will not let you pass over what you need to understand, that will keep offering you the teaching in new forms until you finally receive it, integrate it, embody it so completely that you graduate to the next level of the curriculum. The spiral is not a trap, though it can feel that way when you find yourself facing familiar difficulties again, when you wonder why you keep encountering the same challenges despite your efforts to grow beyond them. It is a staircase. Each time you circle back, you are higher than you were before, even when the view looks similar, even when the landscape seems unchanged. What defeated you once no longer has the same power over you. What confused you once now reveals its teaching. What seemed insurmountable before now appears manageable, because you have grown, because you have accumulated wisdom from previous circuits, because you have developed strength you did not possess the last time you stood in this place. Do not despair when old challenges reappear in new form. They have come because you are ready for the next level of their teaching, ready to learn what you were not ready to learn before. They have come because you are stronger now and can receive what you could not receive in earlier encounters. They have come because the spiral is lifting you, even as it seems to return you to familiar ground. Greet them as you would greet an old teacher whose lessons once seemed harsh, but whose wisdom you now understand was preparing you for exactly this moment. There is a veil across human memory. You entered this life through forgetting. The ancients called it sacred amnesia, the merciful forgetting that makes incarnation possible, the necessary dimming of awareness that allows the soul to fully enter the density of physical experience. It was necessary. If you remembered everything you truly are, the vastness of your being, the infinity of your nature, you could not fully enter the experience of limitation. You could not taste what it means to search when you already know everything. You could not discover what it means to struggle when all power is already available. You could not experience the joy of finding when nothing was ever lost. The forgetting was a gift that made the game possible, that gave the adventure its stakes and its sweetness. But the gift was always meant to be temporary. You were always meant to remember. Not all at once, like a flood that overwhelms and destroys. Not a sudden return of total knowledge that would shatter the vessel of the limited self and make continued incarnation impossible. But gradually, like dawn breaking over a sleeping world, first the faintest light on the horizon, a hint that something is changing. Then the slow spreading of illumination across the landscape of experience. Then the full brightness of day when what was hidden stands revealed. Each insight is a remembering, each moment of recognition when you encounter truth and something in you says, yes, I knew this already. This is not new. Is the veil growing thin? Each time you sense a deeper reality beneath the surface of ordinary experience, each time you feel the presence of something vast that words cannot capture, that is memory stirring. You are not learning these teachings for the first time. You are remembering what the veil obscured. You are recovering what was temporarily hidden. You are waking up from the dream of forgetting. Tonight, as these words wash over you, the veil thins further. You do not need to tear it down with force. That kind of aggression only strengthens what it attacks. Simply let it dissolve at its own pace. Trust that what you need to remember will return to you when you need it. Trust that you have never truly forgotten, only temporarily misplaced what was stored too deep for easy access. The knowledge is there, beneath the surface of ordinary awareness, waiting for permission to rise into the light of consciousness. Everything vibrates. This is not metaphor designed to make spiritual teaching sound impressive. This is not poetry using physical language to convey abstract meaning. This is the fundamental nature of reality, as both ancient mystics perceived through direct insight and modern physicists confirm through careful measurement. The chair beneath you is not solid, though it appears solid to your senses. It is energy, vibrating at frequencies that create the appearance of solidity. The wall, the floor, the body you inhabit, the thoughts you think, the emotions you feel, all of it is movement, frequency, oscillation too subtle for ordinary senses to detect, but real nonetheless, measurable nonetheless, consequential nonetheless. The universe is not made of solid matter, though it appears to be. It is made of dancing energy arranged in patterns of density and light. Some frequencies are so slow they appear as stone, as metal, as the bones within your body. Some are so fast they appear as light itself, as the colors you see, as the invisible radiations that pass through you constantly without your awareness. But all is vibration, all is movement, all is energy in motion, and the differences you perceive between things are differences of frequency, not differences of essential nature. You are a tuning fork in this vibrational universe, constantly resonating with frequencies around you, constantly broadcasting your own frequencies into the field of existence. Your emotions, your beliefs, your habitual thoughts set the frequency at which you vibrate. You are constantly sending a signal into the cosmos, and your frequency determines what you resonate with in the vast field of possibility. Like attracts like. This is not poetry making spiritual points. This is physics translated into soul language. This is how reality actually functions beneath the surface of appearance. When you hold fear, you broadcast at the frequency of fear and attract circumstances that match that frequency. When you hold love, you broadcast at the frequency of love and attract circumstances that match that higher frequency. This is why some people seem to attract difficulty wherever they go, while others seem to move through life with ease and grace. It is not luck, not cosmic favoritism, not random distribution of circumstance. It is frequency. It is the law of resonance operating with perfect consistency. When you shift your inner state, you shift what you attract. Not through effort and struggle, but through alignment. Not through force, but through frequency. The change happens first within, in the invisible realm of thought and emotion and belief. The outer world then rearranges itself to match what you have become internally, drawing to you the circumstances that resonate with your new frequency. Close your eyes and feel your current vibration. Is it heavy or light? Contracted or expansive? Fearful or peaceful? Clouded or clear? You can shift it with breath. You can shift it with attention. You can shift it with intention. Breathe in light. Breathe out density. Feel your frequency rise like a note climbing toward a purer tone. Whisper. I shift my resonance to truth. I align my frequency with love. I broadcast what I wish to receive. The guardians of knowledge have always existed. In every age, in every culture, in every corner of the world, there have been those who preserved the forbidden teachings through times of darkness and forgetting. They were called by many names, and their methods differed according to time and place and circumstance. Mystery schools in ancient Greece, where initiates progressed through levels of understanding over years of dedication. Hidden academies in Egypt, where the science of consciousness was preserved in symbol and architecture. Secret brotherhoods and sisterhoods in medieval Europe, operating beneath the notice of authorities who would have destroyed them. Whispered lineages in the mountains of Tibet and the forests of India, passing wisdom from teacher to student across generations. Underground traditions keeping flame alive when public teaching was impossible, maintaining the chain of transmission despite persecution and danger. Their methods differed, but their purpose was the same, to protect the wisdom from those who would misuse it or destroy it out of fear, and to preserve it for the day when humanity would be ready to receive it openly. They understood that certain knowledge in unprepared hands becomes dangerous, not because the knowledge itself is evil, but because power without wisdom creates destruction. And so they guarded the teachings, tested those who sought them, revealed them gradually to those who demonstrated readiness, and waited with patience measured in centuries for the time when wider revelation would become possible and necessary. You are living in that time. You are living in an age of revelation, when what was once whispered in candlelit chambers is now available to those with ears to hear. The guardians have not abandoned their post. They have simply opened the gates wider. They have recognized that the crisis facing humanity is also an opportunity, that the challenges of this era create the pressure that cracks open closed minds, that the time of mass awakening has begun, whether individuals are ready or not. You are part of this awakening, not as a passive recipient who takes and gives nothing back, but as an active participant in the unfolding. What you integrate, you transmit through your being and your actions. What you embody, you offer to the collective field of human consciousness. Your remembering helps others remember, even if you never speak of these things aloud. Your awakening sends ripples through the web of awareness that connects all beings. You matter in this process. Your individual journey matters to the whole. Within you is a temple, not metaphor, not poetry, reality. The body you inhabit is sacred architecture designed by intelligence beyond human comprehension, constructed according to principles that the greatest human architects only dimly perceive. Every system, every organ, every cell is positioned with purpose. The spine is the central pillar, the axis around which everything else arranges itself. The heart is the holy of holies, the innermost sanctuary where the divine presence dwells in steady rhythm. The mind is the altar where the offering of attention is made. The eyes are windows through which the infinite gazes out at its own creation. The hands are instruments through which the formless acts in the world of form. The ancients knew how to enter this inner temple. They used breath as the key that opens the door. They used visualization to navigate the corridors and chambers within. They used concentrated focus to enter rooms that ordinary awareness never visits. They discovered that the outer temples, built of stone and wood and gold, were only models of the inner temple of flesh and light. They understood that the true worship, the true practice, the true encounter with the sacred, happens not in buildings constructed by human hands, but in the living cathedral of the body itself. Every church and mosque and synagogue, every temple and shrine and sacred grove is a representation of what already exists within you. Tonight, you begin to enter your own temple, not to conquer it, but to honor it, not to demand revelation, but to listen for whispers, not to take what you want, but to receive what is given. The body has wisdom the mind has forgotten. The heart has knowledge the intellect cannot reach. The cells carry memories the conscious self cannot access. When you approach with reverence rather than demand, the temple opens its secrets. Place your attention on your heart now. Feel its rhythm, steady and patient, the drum that has accompanied you since before you took your first breath in this body. Let it become the only sound in your inner world. This is the entrance to the sanctuary. This is the threshold you cross into sacred space. This is where the deepest teachings wait in silence for those who have learned to listen. Where attention goes, energy flows. This is among the simplest and most powerful of the forbidden teachings. So simple it seems almost trivial until you understand its profound implications for how experience is created. Your attention is not passive observation that leaves what it observes unchanged. It is active creation. It is the focusing of consciousness that calls things into being, that feeds what it touches, that strengthens what it settles upon. What you focus on, you feed with the energy of your awareness. What you ignore, you starve of that energy. The garden you water grows. The garden you neglect withers. Consider how much attention you have given to what you fear. Hours, perhaps days of your life spent mentally rehearsing worst-case scenarios, imagining disasters that have not happened and may never happen, feeding fearful possibilities with the energy they need to become more likely. Consider how much energy you have poured into problems, turning them over and over in your mind, imagining their complications, feeding them with the steady stream of your worry, giving them more reality and solidity than they might otherwise have. Consider how rarely you have turned the same intensity of focus toward what you wish to create, toward the outcomes you desire, toward the life you want rather than the life you fear. This is not blame. No one taught you differently. This is awakening. You did not know how attention actually functions. You were trained to focus on problems and call it being responsible, to anticipate the worst and call it being realistic. But now that you see how attention works, you can choose differently. Now that you understand that what you focus on grows, you can direct your attention with purpose. The masters learned to wield attention like a surgeon wields a scalpel, precise, deliberate, aware of every cut. They did not scatter their focus across the chaos of circumstance. They did not let their attention be pulled by every passing distraction demanding notice. They chose their point of concentration and held it with steady devotion, knowing that this focus was shaping their experience. Breathe and gather your scattered attention from the 100 places it has wandered. Feel it return from the worries and plans and memories and fantasies that have claimed it. Draw it back to this moment, this breath, this body. Feel how much power is present when attention is unified rather than scattered. Feel how much clarity emerges when the dispersed becomes focused. My attention is sacred. I choose where it rests. I feed what I wish to grow. When you sleep, you enter a classroom without walls, a school where the curriculum is perfectly designed for your exact needs in your exact situation. The dream world is not random noise generated by a resting brain, not meaningless firings of neurons clearing the debris of the day. It is a dimension of teaching, healing, and creation that operates by different rules than waking life, but is no less real for that difference. The ancients knew this. They developed practices to enter dreams consciously, to navigate the dreamscape with intention rather than being merely passive passengers, to meet teachers and receive guidance in the landscapes of sleep. Your dreams are speaking to you every night. Messages arrive in the language of symbol and feeling, a language older than words, a language your soul understands perfectly even when your waking mind dismisses it as meaningless. The thinking mind rejects dreams upon waking because they do not follow the logical patterns the mind prefers. But the soul remembers. Even now, teachings from dreams you cannot recall are working in you, reorganizing your inner landscape, processing experiences too large for conscious handling, preparing you for what lies ahead. In dreams you can fly, because the body's limitations do not apply in that dimension. In dreams you can speak with those who have left the physical world because the barriers of death do not hold in that realm. In dreams, you can witness your own future because time does not flow in a single direction there. In dreams, you can heal wounds that medicine cannot touch because the dream body responds to intention more directly than the physical body. The dream world is not less real than waking life. It is differently real, operating by different laws, offering different possibilities. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, set an intention. Ask for clarity on something that confuses you. Ask for healing of something that hurts. Ask for guidance on the path ahead. The dream teachers are listening. They have always been listening. Your request opens the door for their response. You may not remember the dream, but you will feel the effects of what was given. The illusion of separation is the source of all suffering. This is a teaching found in every wisdom tradition in every corner of the world, expressed in different words and different images, but pointing to the same truth. You believe yourself to be isolated, a single point of awareness adrift in an indifferent universe, fundamentally alone despite your connections to others. This belief seems obviously true. The senses report separation constantly. This body ends where that body begins. This mind cannot read that mind. The evidence seems overwhelming. But the mystics saw deeper. They pierced the veil of appearance and discovered the hidden unity beneath all diversity. They found that what seems like many is actually one. One consciousness wearing infinite masks. One ocean appearing as countless waves. One light refracting through countless prisms into all the colors of existence. The many is the way the one experiences itself in time and space. The wave cannot be separated from the ocean, though it appears distinct, though it has its own shape and its own motion. The ray cannot be separated from the sun, though it travels far, though it brings light to places the sun itself never reaches. You cannot be separated from the source of all being, though you appear to stand alone, though you feel isolated in your individual experience. The separation is appearance only. It is a trick of perception. It is the game the one plays with itself to experience the adventure of being many. When you harm another, you harm yourself, though it may take time for the effect to return. When you heal another, you heal yourself, though you may not see the connection. When you love another, you love yourself appearing in another form. This is not morality taught to control behavior. This is physics. This is the structure of existence itself. This is how reality is actually organized beneath the appearance of separate things. Close your eyes and sense the invisible threads connecting you to all beings. Feel the web of relationship that holds everything in place. You are a node in an infinite network. Nothing you do happens in isolation. Every action sends ripples through the web. Every thought affects the field. You have never been alone, though you have felt alone. You cannot be alone. Separation is the dream. Unity is the awakening from the dream. There are no coincidences. The ancients knew this as the law of synchronicity, and they paid close attention to the meaningful patterns woven through the fabric of daily experience. When the inner world shifts, the outer world responds with events that seem miraculous, but are actually natural expressions of a deeper order. The right book falls into your hands at the moment you need its message. The right person appears at the turning point of your life, carrying exactly what you need to take the next step. The right words reach you through unexpected channels at the moment of greatest need. These are not accidents. They are not random confluences of probability. They are the universe speaking in events, confirming your alignment with the current of your unfolding. Synchronicity is confirmation that you are on track. It is the universe winking at you, letting you know that your inner changes are registering in the outer world, that the invisible shifts you have made are beginning to manifest in visible form. The more you trust this law, the more frequently it operates in ways you can perceive. The more you dismiss coincidences as mere chance, the more invisible the pattern becomes. Pay attention in the coming days to what arrives unbidden. Notice the echoes between your inner questions and outer encounters. The synchronicities are breadcrumbs left by your own larger self, the part of you that exists beyond time and can see the whole pattern of your life from beginning to end. Follow them. Trust them. Like attracts like. This is the law of resonance, simple in statement, vast in implication. Your being broadcasts a frequency into the field of existence every moment of every day. That frequency, composed of your beliefs, your emotional patterns, your habitual thoughts, draws to you circumstances, people, and events that match its quality. You are a living magnet, constantly attracting your reflection. This is why willpower alone cannot transform your life. You can push against your nature for a while, but eventually the magnetism of what you actually are draws you back to what matches your frequency. The universe responds not to what you do, but to what you are. Change what you are, and what you attract changes automatically. The work is inner, though the results appear outer. Clean the frequency, clear the distortions, align with truth and love and expansion. The outer world will rearrange itself to match. This is not hope, this is law. Breathe and sense what frequency you have been broadcasting. Then choose a higher tone. Feel yourself shifting, tuning, aligning with what you wish to become. Whisper, I shift my resonance to truth. I align my frequency with love. Every trial is an initiation. The ancients understood that the path of awakening passes through fire, not because the universe is cruel, but because certain transformations require heat. Gold must be melted to be purified. The seed must break open to release the tree hidden within. The caterpillar must dissolve into apparent chaos before the butterfly can emerge. Your difficulties are not punishments. They are invitations to become who you truly are. They are the pressure that creates diamonds. They are the resistance that builds strength. They are the darkness that teaches you to generate your own light. Whatever you are facing now, there is initiation within it. There is growth waiting to happen. There is a version of you on the other side of this difficulty that you cannot yet imagine, but that is calling you forward through the flames. Breath is the bridge between worlds. It connects the visible and the invisible, the conscious and the unconscious, the physical and the spiritual. Of all the functions of the body, breath alone is both automatic and controllable. This is why every wisdom tradition places breath at the center of its practices. You breathe without thought approximately 15 times each minute. But when you bring awareness to breath, something shifts. The autonomic becomes intentional. The mechanical becomes sacred. The ordinary becomes a vehicle for transformation. Breathe slowly now. Feel the air enter through your nostrils, cool and alive. Feel it descend into your lungs. Hold it for a moment at the peak of inhale. Then release, slowly, feeling the warmth of the exhale, the letting go. This simple act, performed with attention, is a spiritual practice complete in itself. The heart is not merely a pump. The ancients knew the heart as the seat of consciousness, the throne of the soul, the center of spiritual intelligence. Modern science confirms what mystics always taught. The heart generates an electromagnetic field that extends several feet beyond the body. The heart has its own nervous system with 40,000 neurons capable of independent perception. When you make decisions from the heart, you access a different kind of wisdom than the head provides. When you perceive from the heart, you see what the eyes miss. Place your hand on your chest. Feel the rhythm beneath your palm. Let your attention rest here. Here is sanctuary. Here is guidance. Here is home. Fear is not your enemy. It is an illusion wearing the costume of protection. When you move toward what you fear, it dissolves. When you step into the feared moment, you find it is different than the mind predicted. You find you have resources you did not know you possessed. Think of something you fear, then imagine walking toward it with curiosity. Imagine standing in its presence and discovering it was missed all along. I no longer run from shadows. Numbers are not merely quantities. They are qualities, signatures, notes in the cosmic symphony. The ancients developed elaborate systems of sacred mathematics. You encounter numbers constantly. When certain numbers recur, pause and ask what they might be saying. The universe speaks in mathematics. There is a field that connects all consciousness. The ancients called it the Akashic record, the collective unconscious, the morphic field. You are not isolated. Your mind floats in an ocean of mind. This is why your transformation contributes to the transformation of the whole. Feel yourself connected to this vast web of awareness. Your light matters to the whole. Ritual is frozen intention. When action is performed with conscious purpose, it becomes something more than mere behavior. Choose one ordinary action and elevate it. Let the brewing of tea become meditation. Small rituals performed with presence accumulate into powerful fields of intention. The stars are not distant, they are intimate. The light reaching your eyes has traveled for millennia to touch you. The elements of your body were forged in stellar furnaces. You are stardust organized into temporary form. Suffering has a hidden purpose. Certain openings can only occur through breaking. The heart that has never broken cannot love with the same depth as the heart that has shattered and been reassembled. Breathe and think of something that hurt you. Can you find the teaching now? Every cause creates an effect. This is the wheel of karma, understood not as punishment but as balance. What you give, you receive. What you bless, blesses you. You are not bound by the past forever. Every moment offers the chance to plant different seeds. Imagination is the technology of creation. What you can imagine, you can move toward. The images you hold are prayers. The futures you vividly imagine are magnets drawing that future toward you. Close your eyes and imagine the life you wish to live. This is not escape. This is creation. Whisper, what I imagine with feeling, I invite into being. All paths lead to the same summit. The mountain has many sides, but only one top. Take what resonates from these words. Leave what does not. Trust your own inner recognition. You are the one who must climb. You are the one who will arrive. There is a power that sleeps at the base of your spine. The ancients called it Kundalini, the serpent fire. When it rises, it transforms. If you have felt strange energies moving in your body, know that you are not ill. You are awakening. You have been returning to Source all along. Every search, every longing has been the pull of home calling you back. You are in the remembering phase now. You are in the great homecoming. Even now you are closer to home than you have ever been, not in space, but in recognition. You are the secret. This is the final teaching. All the laws, all the principles point to this. You are what you seek. Not the small you of name and history, the you beneath that. That you is not separate from Source. That you is Source experiencing itself in temporary form. There is nothing to attain. There is only recognition of what has always been true. There is nothing to become. There is only realization of what you already are. You are not a fragment seeking wholeness. You are wholeness dreaming of fragmentation. You are not a seeker approaching truth. You are truth wearing the costume of a seeker. Wake up, dreamer. You are the dream and the dreamer. You are the secret and the one to whom the secret is revealed. The teachings have been given. The transmission is complete. What was forbidden is now within you. The words will fade, but what they awakened cannot fade. The mind will forget the details, but what the soul has received cannot be forgotten. You are not the seeker anymore. You are the one who has been found. What will grow from this night depends only on the soil of your being and the patience of your becoming. Sleep now. Dream now. Let the night do its quiet work. The seeds are planted. The garden will grow. When you wake, you will be different, not because you have added something, but because you have remembered. Not because you have become someone new, but because you have recognized who you have always been. The secret is no longer hidden. The secret is you. It was always you. Rest now. You are home. The ancients spoke of inner alchemy, the transformation of the base metal of ordinary consciousness into the gold of awakened awareness. This was not metaphor to them, not poetic fancy, but precise description of a process they had witnessed and undergone. They understood that the human being is not fixed, not finished, not a completed product, but a work in progress, a becoming rather than a being. They knew that the consciousness you possess now is not the consciousness you are capable of possessing, that evolution did not stop with the emergence of rational thought, that further heights of awareness await those who undertake the inner work. This work is not what the world calls work. It does not require struggle and strain and the grinding effort that accomplishes external tasks. It is more like gardening than construction. more like allowing than forcing, more like removing obstacles than building structures. The gold is already present within the base metal. The task is not to create it, but to reveal it, not to add something new, but to remove what conceals what is already there. The alchemists called this the stripping away of impurities, the burning off of dross, the refining fire that separates the precious from the worthless. You have already begun this process, whether you knew it or not. Every moment of genuine self-reflection has been part of it. Every time you questioned an assumption you had carried without examination, every time you released a belief that no longer served you, every time you chose love when fear would have been easier, you were doing the work of alchemy. The process accelerates now as you become conscious of it. What happened accidentally before can happen deliberately now. What took years before can take months now. The transformation that seemed impossible before becomes inevitable now. Breathe and feel the golden light that dwells at your center. The light that was never absent, but only covered over by clouds of conditioning and confusion. Feel it beginning to shine through as the clouds thin. This is the gold the alchemist sought. This is the philosopher's stone that transforms everything it touches, and it has been within you all along. The mystics taught that there are centers of power within the human body, wheels of energy that regulate the flow of life force through your being. They called them by various names in various traditions, but the reality they described was the same, regardless of language. These centers are not visible to ordinary perception, but they are as real as your heartbeat, as consequential as your breath. They receive, process, and distribute the vital energy that animates your form and enables your experience. When these centers are open and balanced, energy flows freely through your system. Vitality is abundant. Perception is clear. Emotion is fluid, arising and passing without obstruction. Thought is lucid, arising from stillness rather than spinning in anxiety. The body feels light yet substantial, grounded yet free. This is the natural state, the state the body was designed to maintain, the state it returns to when the obstructions are removed. When these centers are blocked or imbalanced, energy stagnates or distorts. Chronic patterns of tension develop. Emotional energy gets stuck in loops, the same feelings recurring without resolution. Thought becomes repetitive, anxious, dull. The body feels heavy, contracted, uncomfortable. Disease begins in the energy body before manifesting in the physical body. And most illness is the downstream effect of long-standing energetic imbalance. The good news is that these centers respond to attention. Where awareness goes, energy flows. Simply bringing gentle focus to these areas begins to open what has been closed, balance what has been skewed, restore what has been disrupted. This is not complicated work requiring advanced training. It is simple attention, soft and curious, directed to the centers of your own being. The body knows how to heal itself when given the right conditions. Your attention is one of those conditions. The ancient ones recognized that sound carries power beyond its content. A word is not merely a label pointing to a thing. A word is a vibration that affects reality directly, independent of its meaning to the thinking mind. They discovered that certain sounds, properly produced, could alter consciousness, shift energy, open doorways to hidden dimensions of experience. They developed precise sciences of sacred utterance, exploring which vibrations produced which effects, mapping the relationship between sound and consciousness, with the same rigor modern science brings to the relationship between medicine and physiology. You have felt the power of sound, even if you have not analyzed it. Music that moves you to tears without your knowing why. A voice that calms you immediately, regardless of what words it speaks. The feeling of a sacred space created partly by the sounds that fill it. The shift in your own state when you sigh deeply, when you hum, when you sing, when you speak words of love or words of fury. Sound is not neutral. Sound is active. Sound creates. The most powerful sounds are those aligned with the fundamental vibrations of reality itself. The ancients encoded these in mantras, in chants, in the sacred names they used for the divine. These sounds were not invented but discovered, not created but received. They correspond to the actual frequencies at which different levels of reality vibrate. When you produce these sounds, you tune yourself to those frequencies. You resonate with dimensions of experience that ordinary sound does not reach. Even your ordinary speech carries creative power. The words you habitually use shape your experience. Negative words about yourself, repeated often enough, become programming that your subconscious mind executes automatically. Positive words about yourself, repeated with feeling, become counter-programming that replaces the old code. The ancients knew to guard their speech carefully, not from superstition, but from understanding of how the universe actually operates. There is a memory that does not reside in the brain. The body itself remembers, and what it remembers is stored not in neurons but in tissue, not in electrical patterns but in the very substance of muscle and organ and bone. This is why trauma can be held for decades in areas of chronic tension. This is why certain stretches or movements can suddenly release floods of emotion with no apparent psychological cause. This is why the body must be included in any complete process of healing and transformation. The ancients knew this. They developed practices that worked with the body's wisdom rather than trying to override it with mental discipline alone. They used movement and breath and posture to access states of consciousness that thinking could not reach. They understood that the body is not merely a vehicle for the mind, but a form of intelligence in its own right, with its own knowing, its own memory, its own contribution to make to the process of awakening. Your body carries the history of your life, and, according to some teachings, the history of other lives as well. It carries the unfinished business of experiences that were never fully processed, emotions that were never fully felt, traumas that were never fully integrated. This material does not disappear when you stop thinking about it. It sinks into the body and waits there, influencing your posture, your movement, your energy, your health, your availability for certain experiences, and your avoidance of others. Meanwhile, healing this material requires more than insight, though insight helps. It requires the willingness to feel what was not felt, to complete what was not completed, to bring presence to the places in your body where presence has been withdrawn. This can happen through conscious bodywork, through certain forms of meditation, through practices that combine movement with awareness. It can also happen spontaneously, in moments of deep rest or intense experience, when the body's wisdom recognizes that conditions are finally safe enough to release what has been held. The masters taught that human beings possess multiple bodies, not just the physical form you see when you look in the mirror. The physical body is the densest layer, the most visible, the most familiar to ordinary perception. But surrounding and interpenetrating it are subtler bodies, each operating at a different frequency, each with its own functions and characteristics. The energy body circulates life force, the emotional body processes feeling, the mental body generates thought. Beyond these are even subtler vehicles that most humans never become aware of during physical incarnation. These bodies are not separate in the way that physical objects are separate. They occupy the same space, interweaving and influencing each other constantly. The state of one body affects the states of all the others. This is why emotional disturbance produces physical symptoms, why physical illness affects mental clarity, why mental patterns shape emotional experience. They are not truly separate systems, but different octaves of one instrument, different frequencies of one spectrum of your being. Most people identify exclusively with the physical body, assuming that they are the form they see reflected back from mirrors. This identification is not wrong, but it is incomplete. You are the physical body, but you are also more than the physical body. You are the energy body, the emotional body, the mental body, and bodies beyond these that have no names in ordinary language. The fullness of what you are cannot be contained in any single layer of your being. As you awaken, you become progressively aware of these subtler dimensions of yourself. You begin to sense energy directly, rather than only inferring it from physical effects. You begin to witness emotions rather than only drowning in them. You begin to observe thoughts rather than only thinking them. Each layer of awareness you access gives you more freedom, more perspective, more capacity to respond rather than merely react to the circumstances of your life. The teaching of presence may be the simplest and most profound of all. Be here now, not lost in memories of a past that no longer exists, not lost in anticipations of a future that has not yet arrived. Here, in this moment, which is the only moment that is actually real, the only moment in which life is actually lived, the only moment in which change is actually possible. The past exists only in memory. However vivid your recollections, however strong your attachments to what was, the past is not here now. It cannot be changed, cannot be touched, cannot be lived in. To dwell in the past is to miss the present, to be absent from the only place where life happens. The future exists only in imagination. However detailed your plans, however strong your hopes or fears about what is to come, the future is not here now. It cannot be controlled from the present moment, only prepared for. And when the future arrives, it arrives as the present moment, not as some different kind of time. To dwell in the future is to miss the present, to be absent from the only place where life happens. This moment, right now, is where you live. This breath, right now, is where life expresses itself through your form. This awareness, right now, is where the universe becomes conscious of itself through your eyes. Most humans spend most of their lives absent from this moment, lost in mental time travel to past and future, missing the only experience that is actually available. Presence is not difficult in the way that mastering a complex skill is difficult. It is difficult only because of the momentum of habit, the deep grooves of thought patterns that carry attention away from now again and again. The practice is simple. Notice when you have left and return. Notice when you have left and return. Notice when you have left and return. This is the entire practice. This is enough. The wise ones taught that you are surrounded at all times by beings you cannot see, presences that inhabit dimensions adjacent to the physical, intelligences that interact with human life in ways that most humans never notice. Some traditions call them angels, some call them guides, some call them ancestors, some call them by other names that point toward the same reality. You are not alone, and the help available to you extends far beyond what your physical senses can perceive. These beings do not usually impose themselves on your awareness. They wait to be invited. They respect your free will and will not override it, even when they see you making choices that lead to unnecessary suffering. But when you ask for help, they respond. When you open to guidance, guidance comes. When you acknowledge their presence and express gratitude for their assistance, the connection strengthens. You have felt their presence before, perhaps without recognizing it. The sudden knowing that you should take a different route, followed by learning of an accident on the road you would have traveled. The inexplicable feeling that someone is watching over you in a dangerous situation. The sense of a loving presence near you in times of grief or fear. The guidance that arrives in dreams, in sudden insights, in the words of strangers that seem too perfectly timed to be coincidence. They do not do your work for you. They cannot and would not remove the challenges you came here to face, but they can guide, can support, can comfort, can illuminate. They can help you see what you could not see on your own, understand what you could not understand, find strength you did not know you had. They are part of the larger family of consciousness to which you belong, and they wish for your awakening as you wish for your own. The teaching of surrender confuses many seekers because it seems to contradict the teaching of personal power. If you are the creator of your experience, if your thoughts and beliefs shape your reality, how can surrender be important? Doesn't surrender mean giving up your creative authority? The apparent contradiction dissolves when you understand what surrender actually means. Surrender is not giving up your power. Surrender is releasing your resistance to the flow of life, your insistence that things be other than they are, your belief that you know better than the intelligence that orchestrates galaxies how your small life should unfold. Surrender is not passivity. Surrender is the highest form of activity, the activity of getting out of your own way, the activity of allowing the larger movement of life to move through you unobstructed. The personal will, the small self that thinks it knows what it wants, is capable of accomplishing small things. With effort and determination, it can achieve goals, accumulate possessions, build structures in the world. But it cannot accomplish the great work of transformation, the work of awakening, the work of becoming what you truly are. That work requires the participation of forces larger than the personal self, forces that the personal self cannot command, only cooperate with. Surrender means saying yes to what is, even when what is does not match what you wanted. It means trusting that the intelligence that beats your heart and grows your hair knows how to unfold your life. It means releasing the cramped grip of control and opening to the vast flow of grace that is always available when you stop blocking it with your resistance. This does not mean you become passive, that you stop acting, that you wait for life to happen to you. You continue to act, but you act without attachment to outcomes. You continue to prefer certain results, but you hold those preferences loosely. You continue to move in the direction of your deepest calling, but you remain flexible about the form that calling takes. You dance with life rather than trying to force life to dance your way. The mystery schools taught that there are laws governing the invisible realms just as surely as there are laws governing the physical realm. Gravity operates whether you believe in it or not. So too do the laws of consciousness, the laws of energy, the laws of manifestation. Your ignorance of these laws does not exempt you from their operation. Your belief or disbelief changes nothing about their reality. They function with the same impersonal consistency as any physical law, and understanding them gives you the same advantage that understanding physical laws gives in navigating the physical world. The law of vibration states that everything vibrates, that nothing is truly at rest, that even the most solid appearing matter is energy in motion. The law of correspondence states that the patterns of the greater are reflected in the lesser, that the macrocosm and microcosm mirror each other, that you can understand the universe by understanding yourself, and understand yourself by understanding the universe. The law of cause and effect states that nothing happens without cause, that every action generates consequences, that the universe is perfectly just in its operation, even when human perception cannot see the justice. The law of polarity states that everything has its opposite, that opposites are identical in nature but different in degree, that extremes meet, that all truths are half-truths. The law of rhythm states that everything flows in and out, rises and falls, swings forward and backward, that the pendulum swing manifests in everything, that the measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. The law of gender states that gender manifests on all planes, that everything has its masculine and feminine aspects, that creation requires the union of these principles. These laws do not care about your opinions. They do not adjust themselves to your preferences. They operate with complete consistency, creating the framework within which all experience unfolds. The wise study these laws and align themselves with them. The foolish ignore these laws and wonder why life seems so difficult, why the same problems recur, why efforts do not produce expected results. Tonight, as you rest and the teachings settle into your deeper awareness, know that these laws are working on your behalf. The very act of hearing these words has set forces in motion. The seeds planted will grow according to law. The alignment created will produce its natural results. You do not need to make this happen through effort. You only need to allow it by not resisting. The sages spoke of different levels of consciousness, stages through which awareness evolves as it develops toward its full potential. These are not levels of worth, but levels of development, not rankings of value, but descriptions of capacity. A child is not less valuable than an adult, but a child has not yet developed adult capacities. So too with consciousness. Earlier stages are not inferior, but they have not yet unfolded what later stages reveal. At the earliest stages, consciousness is identified completely with physical survival. The world is seen through the lens of threat and opportunity, and the primary concerns are safety and satisfaction of basic needs. This stage is appropriate for those conditions that require it, but consciousness need not remain here. At later stages, consciousness identifies with social belonging, with the group and its rules and expectations. The world is seen through the lens of us and them, and the primary concerns are fitting in and finding one's place. This stage builds the capacity for cooperation that complex societies require, but consciousness need not remain here either. At still later stages, consciousness identifies with personal achievement and rational understanding. The world is seen through the lens of what can be accomplished and what can be known, and the primary concerns are success and comprehension. This stage builds the capacity for individual contribution that advances civilization, but consciousness can evolve further still. At the stages that many traditions call awakening, consciousness begins to transcend identification with any particular form of self. The world is seen through ever-widening lenses, and the concerns expand from personal to global to cosmic. Compassion deepens as the illusion of separation thins. Wisdom grows as the complexity of reality becomes more apparent. Peace becomes possible that does not depend on circumstances. These stages are not accomplished through effort in the ordinary sense. You cannot will yourself into higher consciousness any more than a child can will herself into adulthood. But you can create the conditions that support development. You can expose yourself to perspectives that stretch your current understanding. You can practice disciplines that quiet the noise of lower stages. You can surrender the attachments that anchor you to where you are. And then development happens by grace, in its own time, according to its own wisdom. The initiates learn that attention has layers, that awareness can be more or less refined, that the quality of your noticing determines the quality of your experience. Ordinary attention moves across the surface of things, touching nothing deeply, understanding nothing fully, present only in the most superficial sense. Refined attention penetrates to essences, understands causes, communes with depths. You can observe this in your own experience. When you are distracted, anxious, hurried, your attention skitters across experience like a stone skipping across water. You see but do not perceive. You hear but do not listen. You touch but do not feel. Life becomes a blur, a smear of sensations barely registered before they are replaced by the next. Time seems to pass quickly because so little of it is actually experienced. When you are present, calm, unhurried, your attention sinks into experience like that same stone sinking when it finally loses momentum. You perceive the qualities that distracted attention misses. You hear the overtones that rushed attention cannot detect. You feel the textures that hurried contact never notices. Life becomes vivid, specific, full of detail and depth. Time seems to expand because so much of it is actually experienced. The quality of your attention is, to a large degree, within your choice. You cannot always control the circumstances of your life, but you can develop the capacity to bring refined attention to whatever circumstances arise. This is a trainable skill, a capacity that strengthens with practice, a muscle that grows with use. The meditation traditions are, at their core, attention training systems, methods for developing the capacity to be fully present to whatever is happening. There is a quality the ancients called equanimity that deserves special attention. Equanimity is not indifference, though it may look similar from the outside. Indifference does not care about outcomes. Equanimity cares deeply but does not attach. Indifference withdraws from life. Equanimity engages fully but holds all engagement loosely. Equanimity allows you to face whatever arises with balance and stability. Pleasant experiences do not sweep you into grasping. Unpleasant experiences do not plunge you into aversion. You can be present to joy without clinging to it, present to sorrow without drowning in it. You can work toward goals without being devastated if they are not achieved. You can love deeply without being destroyed if love is lost. This quality develops naturally as you see through the illusion of the permanent self. When you recognize that what you call yourself is a flowing process rather than a fixed thing, the threats and promises that normally destabilize you lose their power. There is no permanent self to be threatened, no fixed identity to be enhanced. There is only this moment, this experience, this flowing awareness witnessing what arises and passes. Equanimity is not a destination you reach and then occupy permanently. It is a quality that deepens over time, a capacity that grows with development, a stability that increases as insight matures. Some days you will have more of it, some days less. What matters is the direction of movement, not arrival at some final state. The teaching of impermanence is simple to state and difficult to truly receive. Everything changes, nothing lasts. Whatever arises will pass away. This is not pessimism but realism, not morbidity but clarity. And from this clarity, a strange liberation emerges. The suffering you feel right now will not last forever. The joy you feel right now will not last forever. The body you inhabit will not last forever. The world as you know it will not last forever. Nothing, no matter how solid it appears, no matter how permanent it seems, will continue unchanged. Everything is in motion. Everything is in process. Everything is in transition. This sounds like bad news to the part of you that wants to hold on, that wants to secure happiness and avoid loss. But it is actually the best news possible. It means you are not stuck. It means no matter how difficult your current circumstances, they will change. It means no matter how fixed your current limitations feel, they are not permanent. It means the universe is not frozen into any particular configuration, but is always in creative flux. And when you truly receive this teaching, attachment loosens its grip. You can enjoy what is present without desperately trying to make it stay. You can face difficulties without despairing that they are eternal. You can love fully, knowing that loss is built into the nature of things, and accepting that cost as the price of depth. The masters emphasize that knowledge without practice is fruitless, that understanding without embodiment changes nothing, that information is not transformation. The teachings shared tonight are not meant to add to your collection of spiritual concepts. They are meant to change how you live, how you perceive, how you relate to yourself and others, and reality itself. The test of any teaching is not whether you can repeat it, but whether it has altered your experience. The value of any insight is not in its elegance, but in its fruit. Spiritual knowledge that does not produce love, wisdom, peace, and service is merely entertainment for the mind, and the mind already has more entertainment than it needs. This is why the traditions emphasize practice, not because enlightenment must be earned through effort, but because practice creates the conditions in which grace can be received, not because transformation is produced by discipline, but because discipline removes the obstacles that block transformation. The teaching comes to you from beyond you. Your work is to prepare yourself to receive it, to clear the channels, to soften the resistance, to create space for what wants to happen. What practices are right for you, only you can discover. What worked for others may or may not work for you. What the traditions recommend is starting points, not final answers. Meditation, prayer, contemplation, service, study, devotion, movement, breath. These are doors, and behind any door is the same reality. Find the door that opens for you and walk through it. The door matters less than the walking through. As this night deepens and these words settle into the spaces where they will germinate, remember that you are held. Not held by concepts or beliefs or hopes, but held by the very fabric of reality, which is consciousness, which is love, which is what you actually are beneath the costume of separateness you have been wearing. You do not need to earn your place in the universe. You already have it by virtue of your existence. You do not need to prove your worth. Your worth is intrinsic, built into the fabric of what you are, not contingent on accomplishment or approval. You do not need to become something other than what you are. You only need to realize what you have always been, what you cannot help being, what you will always be regardless of how things appear. The universe is not testing you to see if you pass or fail. The universe is experiencing itself through your unique perspective, and that perspective has value, regardless of what you accomplish or fail to accomplish. You are how the cosmos looks through your particular eyes. You are how infinity feels through your particular heart. You are how eternity tastes through your particular experience. And that is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything. Rest now in this truth. Let it settle into your bones, your cells, your deepest awareness. You are not a problem to be solved. You are not a sinner to be redeemed. You are not a student who might fail. You are a wave in the ocean of being, temporarily distinct but never separate, rising and falling but never lost. Sleep comes now, and in sleep the work continues without your effort. The seeds water themselves in the darkness. The roots grow where you cannot see. The transformation proceeds by grace, not by will, by surrender, not by struggle. Tomorrow you will be different, and you will not need to know how or why. You will simply be more yourself, more awake, more alive, more home. The forbidden teachings have been given. The secret has been revealed. And the secret was you all along. It was always you. It will always be you. Rest now. You are home. You have always been home. You can never leave home. Only forget that you never left. Sleep well, dreamer. The dream is about to get lucid. One more teaching remains, one that the masters saved for the very end, one that can only be received after all other teachings have prepared the ground. It is the teaching of radical acceptance, of complete embrace, of saying yes to reality so thoroughly that the boundary between self and world dissolves. Most spiritual seeking is motivated, at least partly, by the desire to escape suffering, to escape limitation, to escape the difficulty of being human. And this motivation is understandable. Who would not want to escape pain? Who would not seek refuge from struggle? The spiritual path offers what seems like the promise of getting out, of transcending, of leaving behind what hurts. But the deepest realization leads not out, but in. Not to escape, but to embrace. Not to transcendence, but to complete immanence. The suffering you wanted to escape, fully accepted, becomes a doorway. The limitation you wanted to transcend, fully embraced, becomes liberation. The difficulty of being human, fully received, becomes the very path you were seeking elsewhere. This is the paradox at the heart of all genuine awakening. You cannot find what you are looking for by seeking it. You can only find it by stopping the search and fully inhabiting where you are. You cannot reach liberation by trying to get somewhere else. You can only realize that liberation was here all along, hidden by your very effort to find it. You cannot become enlightened. You can only stop pretending you are not already the light. The final teaching is not a concept to be understood, but a door to be walked through. And the door is this moment, this breath, this experience exactly as it is, embraced without reservation, accepted without condition, loved without requirement that it be other than what it is. When you say yes this completely, something shifts that all the previous teachings were preparing you for. The seeker disappears, and only seeking remains. But seeking without someone seeking. Seeking is the natural movement of awareness toward fuller awareness. The student disappears, and only learning remains. Learning is the natural expansion of consciousness toward fuller consciousness. The self disappears, and only being remains, being aware of itself, delighting in itself, loving itself in all its forms and manifestations. This is what you are. This has always been what you are. No teaching was necessary to make it so. The teachings only removed the obstacles to seeing what was always the case. You are the forbidden teaching, no longer forbidden. You are the hidden truth, no longer hidden. You are the secret at the center of all seeking, finally revealed to be what was looking all along. And so the night receives you, and the teachings complete their arc, and the words fall away into the silence from which they came. What remains is what always remained, before the words, during the words, after the words, the presence that cannot be captured in language, the awareness that witnesses all language, the being that you are beneath all becoming. Sleep well, dream deep, wake refreshed into the morning light, carrying these seeds in soil you cannot see, waiting for the growth that will come in its own time, trusting the process that has brought you this far and will carry you the rest of the way home. The teachings are complete, the transmission is sealed, and you, who were never separate from the source of all teaching, rest now in what you have always been. Om. Amen. So be it, and so it is. In the silence that follows words, something continues to work. The conscious mind releases into sleep, but the deeper awareness remains awake, processing what has been received, integrating what has been transmitted, weaving the threads of new understanding into the fabric of your being. This is how transformation actually happens, not through the effort of the surface mind, but through the receptivity of the depths, not through doing, but through allowing, not through grasping, but through opening. The night holds you now, as it has held every seeker who ever lived, every sage who ever taught, every human who ever wondered about the mystery of existence. You are not alone in this wondering. You join a company that stretches back to the first humans who looked up at the stars and felt the stirring of questions that had no easy answers. You join a lineage that has passed these questions and partial answers from generation to generation, keeping the flame alive through dark ages and bright ones, through times of persecution and times of celebration. Tonight, you have received what others spent lifetimes seeking, not because you are more deserving, but because the time is right. The conditions are ripe. The moment has come for what was hidden to be revealed. The universe does not withhold its secrets. It simply waits for those who are ready to receive them. And in the readiness, the revelation happens naturally. Tomorrow, the sun will rise on a world that looks the same as yesterday, but is not the same. Because you are not the same. Because one more being has awakened a little more. Because one more point of light has brightened in the vast network of consciousness. And this matters more than you can know. Every awakening matters. Every moment of recognition matters. Every time anyone anywhere remembers what they truly are, the whole field shifts, however slightly, toward greater light. You have done your part tonight, simply by listening, simply by being present, simply by allowing these words to do their work in you. The rest happens by grace, unfolds by its own intelligence, completes itself in ways your conscious mind need not track or understand. Rest deeply. Wake gently. Walk forward into whatever tomorrow brings with the quiet confidence of one who has remembered something essential, something that cannot be forgotten once truly seen, something that will color every experience from this night forward with deeper meaning and greater peace. The forbidden teachings rest within you now. The secret that was sought for so long is found, and what remains is the living of it, the embodying of it, the allowing of it to transform not just your understanding, but your being, not just your thoughts, but your life, not just your private experience, but your contribution to the awakening of all. This is the end of the transmission and the beginning of the integration. May it bless you. May it illuminate you. May it bring you home to what you never left. And so it is.